You're ready in the booth. Hi, good evening. It is 6 p.m. on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024. We will call the City Council budget meeting for the City of New Ulm to order. This is a public hearing, and we will be reviewing the 2025 annual city budget. We do have some information here from Ms. Amira. Oh, from Nicole. Oh,
Just pushing the button.
okay. Well, hey, we need
a lot of work as
we
well.
need to do that too. So, Director Jorgensen, proceed.
So here we go with the 2025 budget. You want to go to the first slide, Danielle? I had to put in some transitions like Joe had because you guys were all
are nice.
impressed. Let's see.
Yeah, look at that.
So as far as the budget process goes, of course, it starts early in the year. In May, department heads start putting their numbers together, and then everything comes to finance to start to put together and review and enter and consolidate. So in September, the preliminary levy was set at just over 10.7 million, and that is a 7.68% increase over 2024's budget. Tonight, of course, is the public hearing for the budget. If for some reason we need to continue, it would continue next week at the same time. I've been able to eliminate a few things, and we'll get to that in more detail as we go through the presentation. But right now, I've been able to get, if council is agreeable to it, get the prelim levy down to 10.4 million, which is a 5.23% increase over 2024. And then just some general information, the state released their numbers, average over the state. The city increases are 8.8%, and the counties are at 6.4%. Brown County's preliminary was at 9%, so just in comparison for some of those. And then looking at this is just one breakdown of the revenues, so you can see where most of our funds come from that help to support the government. Of course, we're very dependent on property taxes. Almost 40% of our revenue comes from property taxes. And then LGA, of course, is another big one. There was not a big increase for 2025 in LGA, went up $7,000. So not like last year's where we got that large increase. I haven't heard anything about future legislation that might change that for next year.
So I serve as the co-chair for the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities Taxation and LGA. And 2 years ago, when we got that big bump up, that was when they redid a lot of the formulas to better support, cities of our size. So you can expect to see kind of nominal increases, but it probably would be a couple of years until you can see any other large increases, but potentially safe to kind of use that as a guideline for future budgeting.
And then, of course, we have charges for services, and there's transfers between some of the funds. And then the PUC pays us a portion of their profits as well in lieu of taxes. So that's where our revenues come from. And then just looking at the revenues as far as which departments bring in that revenue or where those are applied, you can see that a large portion of it is the general fund, which includes the police and fire. And then Park and Rec is the second largest, or third largest compared to debt service as well. So that just breaks down those different sources and where they go. And then on the other side, we have the expenditures, of course. If you look in total, our revenues and expenditures don't appear to match. We do have a balanced budget, but that gap is made up by a fund balance use, so which doesn't show on the revenues. So looking at the expenses, you can see Public Works, of course, keeping up our streets and everything is a large budget. That includes engineering and sewer maintenance and those types of things. Police, of course, is a large budget, and then admin is another large portion of our budget. The community and rec centers are just under $3 million, and then the parks are at about $1.5 million themselves. And then debt service is 4.9 million in expenses. That's actually doubled because of the way we have to do the transfers and where the payments are made. So it's about half of that is actually what our debt payments are. And then just again looking at it by department, and you can see which departments are spending most of those monies and what they're spending those on. Of course, salaries is the largest portion to support all of the staff to get everything done that we need to do, and supplies and other services. And then capital outlay, which I don't know why I have the debt service. Oh, that's because it's the transfer part for the debt service funds, the capital outlay and transfers. And then the sinking funds too, you can see those are the funds that we put away in 290 for future use. And then this slide takes that transfer with the debt service out of play, and it takes out the special service districts like the EDA and the parking. So it's just straight up the general city tax. And looking at this, you can compare the budgets over the last several years, pointing out that this has with just the city portion, it's a 4.5% increase over last year, and the tax levy actually 7.8% over last year. And then with this, I just kind of wanted to point out too, I ran all of this through inflation calculator. So just as a point of reference, the 2009 budget, which was 17.8 million in today's dollars, is actually 26.7 million. So if you use inflation, we've actually been able to stay under budget. We've cut funds if you look at it that way. So just something interesting to note.
Ooh, a curtain.
Big reveal. What are you paying for?
You guys.
Keep us engaged.
Yeah.
This is the slide that's probably the most interesting to the public. It shows you where your tax dollars are going, how much you're paying per year, per month, how much of that helps cover police, how much covers the library or park and rec. So you can see that the average citizen pays $22.67 a month towards the police department, or $14.91 towards our debt service. So you can see where your money's going when you're making those property tax payments. And I get those numbers, the median value of the home at the bottom, the 205 from 2024 and the 211 for 2025, those numbers come from the county as well. So based on actual sales. This slide I always use at the preliminary as well, but it shows you the tax rate versus or compared to the tax levy itself. So you can see the tax rate in 2013 was just above 76%, and right now with the prelim levy, you would be just under 74% or under 73% actually. So you can see where we've actually, our levy amount in comparison to the tax rate has kept up with that growth in the tax base, more than kept up with that growth in the tax base. We've just had some of those years where we've had some higher jumps. And then getting back to those changes I mentioned at the beginning that I've been able to make with the preliminary budget, we were able to get a more accurate number in for wages based on some of the discussions we've had, and more realistic estimates. So we took about $157,000 out for wages. We did hear from the league that they're expecting some decreases in our premiums for workers' comp was a big one, and some of the other insurances. So we took about $78,000 out of the budget to account for that. Being we took some of that other out, we did add some in for some additional Christmas lights and decorating. Inspections needed a gas meter that we added in. I think that's to help read the gas when they're out doing inspections and making sure that's all good. Park and Rec, we've been looking at a new software, which we desperately need. So this is another $15,000 for that implementation of that new software. And then we made a change in lieu, we increased that revenue as well, now that the PUC has the preliminary budget approved or set, we could see what their actual contribution would be. So we increased that $18,000. So that brings the adjusted levy to just under 10.5 million, which is an increase of 5.23%. And then just as a reminder, some of the stuff that is in the budget, some of these things we still have control over. If you wouldn't want them, they could, of course, be taken out or adjusted as you would wish. As a reminder, that first one, the contributions to nonprofits, you guys approved those in August at about $151,000. So we now have a total for Christmas decorations of $14,000 in the budget. We've put $10,000 in for City Hall landscaping, hoping to make some improvements to the Broadway landscape. Then that gas meter for the inspections, repainting the Public Works building is in there for $40,000. And then we talked about this a little bit too, at the preliminary, the street department needs a new storage building, so we have budgeted 100,000 to cover half of that at this point, and then 26, we would do the remaining, so they could complete that building. Engineering needed some new GPS equipment, that's about $20,000. I'm gonna skip over the next one for just a second. Then I mentioned the Park and Rec software at 15,000, and then the library is putting in some new shelving in their children's area at 25,000. That last one, going back to that Broadway corridor study, this is the one Joe wanted me to mention as he was leaving. We had put this in the budget, and I think this is for half of the study, and the state was going to pay the other half. Well, the state did their RFPs and got their estimates back, and it was way higher than what they expected, so they've just completely pulled it. They're not going to do it at this point in time. So my question to you, or the choice that we can make here, is do we leave that 120,000 in and carry it forward as a portion of that project when it can be done? I can't explain the corridor study itself, what all we were going to get out of that. I'm sure it had something to do with traffic flows, and do we have the right traffic controls at the different intersections and those types of things. Or do we take that whole 120,000 just out for now, and then when the state decides to do it, we put that amount back?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one decision I guess I would be asking you to make, or to a direction I would like you to give me tonight as we move forward. If we take out that corridor study, the levy increase goes down to 4.02%. So it would have a large impact on that budget.
Question. So Broadway is like 14 and 15, and so the state was going to pay for some of this.
I believe it was half and
study.
half.
But now it's on hold, or either not happening altogether. Do we feel like this is going to be an imminent study in the next 2 to 3 years? Like, are we going to need to do this study, or could we, or are there other, it's the state, so there's different programs and different grants and different things that become available. Maybe they call it something else, but they'll still do it. You know, personally, I'd be okay with putting some money away, but I don't know that it has to be 120,000. Maybe we put 60 just as a way of kind of matching some of the grant. I don't know. I mean, or 80 or whatever, but.
Joe would
You know.
probably have a good idea whether or not
He
this
would
is
have a
never
better
going
idea.
so we could probably
He
talk
didn't
about
sound real hopeful about it when he talked to me about it. So I really don't have a good gauge on that. My input is I don't generally like carryovers.
Right.
Because we're
Yeah.
saying, okay, we're going to tax you for this.
I'm-
And then when we carry it over, it goes to the fund balance. And
Right.
I've
we'll
always
Yeah.
been an
ask for
advocate
that.
of that.
Yeah, I'm.
My feeling is, I have no issue with MnDOT, who knows,
Yeah.
scratch the 120. That's my personal opinion. Because I don't like that,
Yeah.
our finance
We're not-
director knows that about how I feel with the carryovers.
And that's kind of where Joe and I got in our discussion as well. It was just late in this presentation and in the preparation of the numbers, so I'm like, well, let's give him the decision, and then we can make that calculation later and make sure we get it in the final numbers.
He was, Nicole, I mean, he's not here, obviously. He was kind of leaning that direction or not. When is this going to be?
We were both leaning towards just taking it out.
That's fine.
my
'cause,
vote.
I mean,
support
we have fund balance things that we can use to match, right, in the future.
Well, and like you said, there may be more state funding or
Right.
more grant funding or federal
Yeah,
funding
it
to
might,
help
they
with
might
something like
change
that
the
too, so.
they're gonna do something. I mean, if it's that important to them, if it's that important to us, you know, we will get it done. But I mean, we've definitely made a lot of safety improvements and gotten a lot of funds to, you know, improve that as it is. So I don't know, I'm okay with chipping it off.
I will make that
Mayor?
adjustment.
Yeah, I would support
Mayor?
taking it out and dealing with it when it's reality.
Yeah.
We are official. I was thinking that we were a work session, so we can make motions.
This is, yeah.
Yeah,
public
the final
hearing.
motion is to allow me to make the final adjustments for the amount. So as long as I get that direction, because you're not approving the budget amount tonight,
Right.
you're just saying, okay, public hearing, we're done, close it. This is what we would like to see for the final.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And then looking at, just as a reminder, the planning for the future, we use the 290 funds to help cover a lot of those projects and build towards equipment replacement and things like that as we move forward. So this is just a summary of those amounts that we've built into the budget for 2025. A few of them have gone down quite a bit compared to 2024, but I am comfortable with where those balances are and that they'll be able to support our needs into the future.
Question that I have on blight, we established that, 2 years ago, so this would kind of.
This is actually the second year.
So, I mean, I know that things change every given year, but I'm just curious if, once we put that $25,000 in there, what that fund might be looking like how much did we expend last year?
Well, we used a large
About
portion of that last year to take down
The house and
that
move.
house, which of course is assessed to the property, but, I think with that one, we know we're gonna get that back when that sale settles.
And then
But a
that
lot
would
of
go
times
back
when
in the blight
assessments are-
fund?
Yeah, it'll go right back
Okay.
into the blight fund, yeah.
Okay.
So we can reevaluate that every year. It's just a matter of, if you do some of those projects, you don't always know when you're gonna get those assessments, if the property will sell, if, what will happen with those.
We go back one page to a comment on, and Jeff, we might need your input on this. On the street department storage building, Chris and I talked briefly about this, is, I would assume in 2025, or definitely in 2026, we're going to get the offer to buy the Armory's Field Service, whatever they call that building down on the south end of town. Would that be enough for your storage needs? And would we just approach, because that's a nice building, and I know there's been talk about us wanting to take over that building, and that would be a major change to the street department. Would that be enough for your storage? We probably still want to keep the dollar amounts in there, but what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, if we get the complete whole building, I would assume it would be enough storage room.
Good.
But if, from what I heard, there was other departments that wanted to share that building, so,
No. I think you would get priority, but I don't know.
no, if,
And we're
yeah,
guesstimating 400,000 to 500,000 for that
Probably.
somewhere in that
I believe
range.
we'll pay market value.
Yeah, it's market value. I mean, we'll try to negotiate, but market
Yeah,
value.
right.
is
What
what
I
they're gonna
remember when
set.
our general actually came into this room, he said that we would get first shot at this property. And I said, well, we just gave you $1 million for that land. Do we get a deal? And he's like, no, you don't. The law says you have to submit an appropriate market value
Close.
price. And if we don't accept your bid, then we move on to the county, and the county gets the shot at it next. County doesn't do it or doesn't put in appropriate bid, then it goes to the school board. But I think we're going to have a pretty decent shot at it, I would assume. And if that'll cover your storage needs, I think I'd still leave that amount in there, but maybe we might want to change that term.
I mean.
Well, keep it in there
Storage
regardless.
building.
Storage
Wiring
building.
one or your
But that's a
constructing
lot
one,
different.
so-
That's not a storage building. That got, what, 3
Facility.
lifts in it or 5 lifts?
yeah, I don't
There's a
know
lot
for
of
sure,
stuff
I
in
haven't been in it lately, so.
And then a long time ago, but they can change oil. I mean, they work on vehicles. I mean, that's a whole nother subdivision for you'd have a north and a south, stations for your snow plows and your vehicles. So, I mean, it kind of would change how you do business down there. But I think it makes sense.
Just, the storage building at the compost site would be very convenient for us. It's right there next to us, and we
That's true.
do a lot of work with the compost, and we could keep that equipment right in that shed. So that'd be the convenience part of it.
Yeah, something for discussion for you future counselors.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
If we can.
And then just a reminder that playground equipment is a new 290 fund. In 2024, we budgeted $170,000 to replace equipment at one of the parks. We've decided right now that equipment does not need to be replaced, so we would use that $170,000 in 2024 to establish the 290 fund, and then the 150 would be the contribution for 2025.
Every conference I go to, it's not cheap. There's vendors everywhere, so.
Yeah. I'm amazed at what that playground equipment costs.
I know, yeah.
Wow.
Okay, and then this is the use of fund balance that we have in the budget. We have $100,000 in the general fund for Emerald Ash Borer for a program or some kind of program, I guess, to help with payment or removal of trees and replanting, I think. We haven't established that program yet, but
Still in the works, but it would be for removal of trees in the boulevard throughout the city.
and then in the Park and Rec Fund, we have a total of $305,000 budgeted to use of fund balance. That includes $100,000 for our Park and Rec master plan, $30,000 for tree replacement, $120,000 for the North Park dugout roofs, and $40,000 to resurface the courts at Washington Park, and then an additional $15,000 towards that amphitheater shortage. So that is that. We're looking at the Park and Rec fund balance, and if we use that 305,000 plus the 100,000 that we've agreed for the BMX loan, that will come out of fund balance as well. At the end of 2025, I estimate the Park and Rec fund balance will be at 34.7%, or about $1.3 million.
I'm comfortable with that. One question on Washington Park, for Mr. Schuwel, just curious, that's tennis court, right? Not pickleball?
Or do you have a new plan?
Or do you have a new plan?
A couple different options for that one. So with the huge growth of pickleball and the numerous tennis courts in the community as well that offer community use, we're looking at a hybrid option. So it would be 2 pickleball, 1 tennis.
That's what I want.
Yeah. If we take tennis completely out, then we no longer have tennis at any of our municipal parks any longer. So it's a kind of a balance there, and we do have tennis use there
We
still.
did, yeah. So I'm good with that. That's a good idea.
You're at the mic, the amphitheater, how much is still remaining on that? Is it,
I think after this year's after the 2024 $15,000 payment, there's still, is it 80? It's around
Year
80,000.
2 of taking 15,000 to
Okay.
depreciate that. Now we are looking for some other funding
Yep.
mechanisms to reduce that potential naming rights for the amphitheater that could move that down sooner.
Yeah, which is why I've left it at 15,000, just in hopes that we would have some other funding.
thank you.
So that's the Park and Rec fund balance information. The general fund balance, at the end of 2024 will be at about 43%, and at the end of 2025 should be about 42%, or about $6 million. So they're all sitting pretty healthy. If you would elect out of the fund balance, you could also do that for Park and Rec. You could elect to use more. Another 100,000 would bring that down to 32%. But then, like I've said in the past, the more fund balance you use, the more painful it is to put those monies back when you have projects in
I'm
future
comfortable
years.
with this.
And then the next slide shows you the impact to the taxpayers. Looking at comparing the 2024 levy compared to the 2025 preliminary levy, which was a 7.68% increase. And then the proposed final levy at the 5.23%, which would actually go down if we take out that corridor study.
4.04, right?
0.02 is where that would be.
Okay.
So, so the typical taxpayer, barring any increases in their tax value, would see around, probably with that new adjusted amount, I want to say it was around $70 increase over 2025 in their city property taxes. So that is all I have as far as information with the budget. If there's any other questions or public comment.
Yes, this is a public hearing, if anyone would care to be heard.
Including city staff.
I mean, I know it takes a lot of work to get this done, and I appreciate how you really lay that out for us, and, everyone knows what's going on. There's not really any surprises for us at this point. I mean, being able to kind of cut that $120,000, that's kind of nice, but, again, it's just something that may be coming down the line. So I don't know, Mayor?
The only question I was going to raise is the Herman Monument and putting in, what did we putting in, 100,000? What are we really looking at as far as total cost?
I don't know if Elwood is here to
Well,
answer.
and so, yeah,
As
millions.
Director
so-
Schugel, exits stage left over here. Oh, that's an Elwood question. Oh.
He's leaving, he's leaving. He's
I
not
knew
coming
there
up
was a
here.
way to get you up to the podium.
On camera.
So we've got a preliminary cost from the architect to draw up plans for the deconstruction of the monument of $300,000,
Just for the plans.
just for the plans.
Heard.
Oh,
Les, come on.
So at that point, then it would go out for bids after that
Okay.
to get somebody to come in and deconstruct it and take it down and save pieces that can be saved and do what we can do. So
And-
that number, I've got a local contractor trying to give me a budget number on something like that. I haven't received it yet. I was hoping to have it this Monday, but he didn't come through with it yet.
On the
So,
deconstruction?
Yes.
Were there a local company that would do this?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, deconstruction, and I know I'm getting a little off topic here. Is there companies that kind of are more versed at doing that? I mean, Herman's a national treasure, and, nothing against any local companies, but I think for something like this, we would want an opportunity to, so are there experts in this field, is what I'm asking.
There's experts of taking down buildings, I would guess. As for monuments, I would
Not
say it's going to
monuments.
be a hybrid thing, but
I'm correct, though, with like our Minnesota State Historical Society, this is one of the first ever done.
as far as I know, this is the first time they've ever approved something like this to deconstruct it and then rebuild it.
So deconstruction, but then there's also construction,
Correct. So as we're-
replacement.
So as we're deconstructing, the architect and firm, is my assumption, would they be on site categorizing and cataloging everything coming down and how it was built, so then they can draw up plans for reconstruction. So there again, you're probably looking at that time, $400,000 or $500,000 for plans possibly.
Sure.
So it's going to be.
But you're talking, this is
multi-millions
going to
and
be
years.
like $10 to $20 million project, probably.
I would say ballparking at that. It's a big
Lots of
ballpark.
change orders.
Yeah.
And so in the process, deconstruction, where are they going to hold the things that we're keeping or salvaging?
Well, looking at that. We've got the battery building that's sitting out there. Don't know what's happening with that yet. We've talked about the National Guard Maintenance Center, if that is cleaned out at that time. We'd like something close, so we've talking about putting Connex boxes up on Herman to be able to store stuff right on site in a secure, fenced-in area. So it's really going to depend on it's going to kind of depend on what we can save. I mean,
That'll be
we're not going to
curious.
know till once we get into it. I mean, it might be nothing by the time we start taking it down. They just say it's not good to reuse, and we're starting all over. So it's going to be, right now, it's a lot of unknowns.
Okay.
Thank you, Elwood.
Thank you.
So then the monies that we're setting aside would go toward those, the planning
Yes.
and not the actual project, which would be phenomenal.
Right, the money we're looking right now would be to go for getting the deconstruction plans instead of having to go through a grant cycle with that, because that'd put us another year back.
Very wise.
Chris, would it make any sense if we, going back to this armory project, finding out if it is going to be in 2025, they're going to offer it to the city, or 2026?
I mean, I can.
Can we
send
call
an
the
email
general
to-
and
yeah, I mean,
find-
I can email them and see.
Let's find that out before we finish out the budget, because we might want to put a little bit more in that category. If it's going to be a $400,000 or $500,000 project, we only got 100 amount in there, we might want to put a little more in there.
Elwood, they're at least year out yet? Out here?
from building.
That's,
Right. Yeah, I've seen some action down there, but not,
Yeah.
yeah. It's probably going to be 26, but maybe we want to put half in the budget for 25 and then half in 26.
Yeah, but I would hate to designate funds for that if you don't even know if the future council is going to want it, or
Yeah.
if they're going to approve a purchase. I don't know.
I'll find
Let's
out. I'll
find
try
out.
and
Let's
find
find
out
out.
by the next
Yeah.
meeting.
If it's going to be 27 or something, obviously, we don't need to worry about it right now. That's all I got. No comments from the public, or from
All
the
right.
public?
Any other questions or comments? This is your opportunity. Oh,
Oh,
got Mr. Hoffman coming up.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
What if we'd move that 120 to the storage building, we could build it next year, then we wouldn't have the extra costs down the road.
but do you need a storage building and the armory? Is that what you mean?
No, then we'd have our storage building out at the compost site is what I'm saying. If you'd move that 120, from the Broadway study, we'd be able to build that storage building this next year.
and then the park department will have to budget more money.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
Well, then that's a good point, because we did talk about 200,000, and then because we were trying to keep everything down, we said, how about talking to Jeff about doing it over 2 years? So
And we're done.
then we're done, and you've got the facility you need, what you're looking for.
And you're avoiding another year of inflation.
Yep.
But then in a couple of years, do you really need the Armory building?
Oh, I bet we do.
Still, yes.
Yeah.
You just don't want to overbuild either at this point.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to agree with that because the parks has been looking now for 10, 15 years
For more
for some
storage.
kind of. Usually I'm looking at this.
We're back a little bit further than we typically are in a meeting.
Again, I know that the park department has been looking for a long time for their equipment. It's scattered all over the city of the one-stop shop. Am I correct, Mr. Schugel, or not? Or give us your opinion now.
Or forever hold your peace.
I think for me, a little bit, though, we'd have to get in that facility. I've never been in that facility to really see what that looks like. Now, one of the benefits of our current facility, our shop, it's central. So when we're scattered all over the city, we are saving money on gas everywhere we go, being central and not being on one end of town, going all the way out to the north side that way. So that does add up over time. We, though, however, do need more space, but without seeing really what that space looks like, is it too much? I don't know. So just being
Or
responsible
is it
that way.
better off in a year or two, the budget, the 200, add on to that and forget the $400,000 building?
Internally, we've had discussions on a way to add on to our current facility that isn't a huge number, but really would get us to what we need. We need cold storage, we need heated storage, you know.
Maybe, Chris, when you ask about when it becomes available, maybe some of the staff need to get out there and take a look, because if it's not going to meet your needs, then it's a whole nother discussion.
Well, when I look
I
at,
do know the county wants that building,
oh, I know.
so.
Yeah, when I look at that building, it's more south side. So again, if we ever develop Cottonwood, Upper Cottonwood,
Yeah, yeah.
again, Park and Rec is going to need something close on the south end. When we look at snow plowing, we can put snow plows down there so drivers report to the south end. They don't have to go to the north end, then drive all the way down there.
Makes sense.
You know, the electric buses, if the county doesn't have a place to them, now we have a place for it. You know, do we decommission the Goosetown Fire Station? Then we have a bigger fire station on the south end right there. So again, there's multiple, and then that's not even including the utilities. I feel the utilities at some point will have to come up with a little bit of money because it's right next to their substation. They can have the office there for their substation. They can store equipment out there as well. So again, it won't be just us putting money into that building potentially. The utilities may come up with a little bit of that as well. So options out there. But yes, I will see if we can get a walkthrough and then potentially when it will be for sale.
I'd recommend a couple counselors go through there as well.
We'll let
It's
you
an
know.
interesting, it's a big building. I've been in there, but it's been a long time since I've been in there.
An interesting future work session topic here in 2025, 2026.
Yes.
Yeah. And then next start exploring the options.
Well, I'd like to go back to the street department, and I would suggest that we put the money in for that building and to take care of it, because that's a different issue from the maintenance building. And that, you've talked about the convenience of having it adjacent to the existing facility. Is that correct, Jeff?
More central, I think, but.
What was your question?
If we constructed the building that we are talking about, it would be close in proximity to where your other facility is located.
Yes, it
And that's
would-
what you were saying would be an advantage.
Yes, it would be located out at the compost site, right next to the trap range where the battery building built theirs and the dog pound is. It'd be right next to that. So when we use our composter and stuff like that, we could store it right there. The main thing now for our storage building, we got 350,000 sandbags stuffed in our, those would be able to go down there out of the way, so our main storage shed would free up some space for our stuff.
Maybe I asked you before, this is cold storage?
This would be cold storage, yes. Because right now, we're storing stuff at the fairgrounds, we're storing stuff down in the battery building. We're storing stuff for the winter, we put in cold storage.
So it puts us right back at your
Right back
original
at the
number.
5.23, yeah, which,
Still at the lower end, we're still not competing to be highest in the state.
right.
No.
We would be at a good number.
but we know we're going to need it.
Yes.
And, we know a building doesn't get any cheaper. So I think we leave it. There's an option.
Leave it there
yep.
and use it for the storage building.
Yeah.
I
And then we
agree.
can charge for construction in 2025.
I'm all right with that.
Okay.
Yep.
Fantastic. Is there any other questions or comments regarding the preliminary budget and levy? All right. With that, we will close the public hearing and adjourn today's meeting.
Oh,
You need a motion to close the public hearing. Yeah,
Motion.
there's a
Sorry.
motion there.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and approve revenue and expenditure adjustments as presented to the preliminary 2024 budget and allow 2025 budget and allow staff flexibility in further minor changes needed in arriving at the final 2025 budget numbers.
Second.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Is this a roll call? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 That motion does carry. With no additional business, this meeting is adjourned.